I can respect the game. You know what I
I
mean?
told him I'd give him $1 if he tabbed me out. Not gonna happen.
You mind if I use you?
All right. So, we've done all this back stuff lately, right? One of the worst things that can happen to you in back is you end up right here, right? You're on their back, they rotated you around, you're like, oh no, right? And you're like, oh, well, I don't have the back anymore. Now I'm in guard. So, in guard, I don't ever play right here. When our spines are aligned, he's very strong. He's easy to break me. Boom, right? So if I'm here, I choose to come off to the side. And I typically scoop first and come out. I play a side kind of guard, me, personally. I think this is way more powerful, right? I use my shin / knee on the top of his back to keep his posture down. This leg is stopping him still from leaving, right? But it still gives me a little bit of push and pull. My hip isn't, I'm not on his hip like all the time. If I put my knee too high up or anything like that, boom, right? Easy passing, right? So even just keeping your feet, you can cross your feet back here, it won't really matter. I don't. I typically like to hover over the shoulder more, me personally. But how do we get there? If you're wearing gi, this kind of grip right here, breaking that posture, pulling them up, pulling them down, right? Plant your foot if you need to, kick over, and do that, right? Now, if you see, I keep this, right? I prefer to keep this kind of underhook style. I know some people do overhook. I think both are equal, right? I like overhook for what we're going to do today. I like underhook as the majority of what I do, I would say, because I like the ability just to pass it by, right, and to go up. So if you're over, right, like this, come underneath and grab this gi, right, pass it to yourself. You can always cross over. For what we're going to do today, I do not recommend this, right? You will stuff yourself in your motion, right? My hand can only be so extended, and I can only have so much tension, right? This is just fine for what we're gonna do today, right? Because I'm trying to do all these kickover stuff and holding way over here, right? I'm actually getting in my own way, right? My hips can only be so tight, right? Where from here, right, I can get all that distance. All that distance. Alright, so just for here. Boom. Set up a side guard. Track in. Alright, give that a try. Okay, so same thing, we're gonna pull, break them down, right? Get control, right? And from here, right, I have a few options of what I can do. Simplest one, obviously, I have an arm bar, right? I have this kind of arm bar, I have a razor lock, right? I have the ability to step over and apply this way, right? I will tell you, most people don't just give you that, right? So if I'm here and he starts to just move his hand or anything like that, what does that look like? A Kimura, right? I could lift it up, right? Yeah, wrist locks there, right? So in gi, right, sometimes we can't get this finished because they connect themselves and stuff like that, right? If that's the case, I typically start to push and straighten my own leg, and I put it over the head, and I get my feet free of his body, right? And from here, I've never let go of like basically having my hand on top of him, right? Or down here. Doesn't matter either or, right? I'm preventing him from basically rolling. Either way, right? I either hold his foot, put my hand in the crook of his little knee / calf area, right? Or I have my hand on top, right? Most traditional hand on top because it's the direction I'm going anyway, right? I actually prefer to put my hand right here, right? It does give them a little bit of space to move. However, it also allows me to sit up very easily, and then that's my body, right? But it also allows me, right, to do this, just like that push-pull, and I can lock this down, now come up on top. If I'm up here the whole time and I'm like, oh, I want to pull and flatten him out, right? It becomes very hard to flatten him out because he can follow me, right? Where if I'm here like this, he can't follow me very well. And then I hook underneath, right? My real goal is to end up looking over here. Please don't roll while you have someone like this. You will basically cripple their shoulder for the rest of their life. If I was just to dive roll, right, his arm would be very bad, right? As you see, my feet are S, right? And I'm literally just applying pressure at a 45-degree angle, right? I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Right, so here, and I'm just going to walk up.
Make sure you're sitting up too, like where if he leaned back at all, this arm's coming out.
Yeah.
But he had it like pinched with his leg and his stomach. I couldn't move this arm at all.
Yeah, so there
Stuck
should
in
be
it.
no space between you and them, right? The further out you are, that means the further arm is straight, right? And if you are not tight, right, that means it's gone. So if I do this again, boom, boom, and I'm like, aha, I get it, right? And I stay out here like this, even if I can keep him down, that's gone. So we're here, we can tuck it back, I'm on top, right? You're like, oh, I want to go for the omoplata. You can do it this fashion, but you see, once I'm here, my body comes in, now I'm here, right? You don't have to flatten people out, right? If I'm like this and I can get this kind of pressure, I do not need to flatten him out, right? Most consistent, to like get this effectively, right? You'll be like, oh, I want to flatten him out. This like shrimping, little side pulling, I don't necessarily like it, me, personally. So I'm gonna find things to do like this, where I don't have to do it, right? Or even look backwards and then raise. That's a weird way of finishing it. I know not a lot of people do it, but you can literally, you'll never make it that far, right? Tracking. Let's give that a try. Okay, so we're doing the same thing. Boom. We get here, right? We're like, oh, I want this omoplata, right? And now he starts to look up, right? Am I gonna get this omoplata? No, but I can get the go-go plata, right? If you look at how my foot is right now, right? I can suck him in, I can push him away, right? I highly recommend not doing this so hard of an angle. So once you put your foot in front, I come and I look at it, right? How did I get this? I went from being here, like, oh, I'm gonna step over, his head starts to come up. I literally tuck my foot across, yes, it is uncomfortable. This is also something that like you have to be careful of people's arms. Yeah, so like, we'll do it this way, right? So, I will say, arm bar's still there, right? But you want to basically pull yourself back in. If I can't get a hand in, etc., I use this foot that's not doing a whole lot, and I hook that, and I square back up with it, right? Here, this hand goes over the head, and I grab, not my toes, but this little space right after the, it's right after the joint, right? So this space, this little meaty part, that's what you want to grab, right? Except I'm gonna grab it with this hand. I think you guys can all tell where this choke goes, right? Super simple. Now, let's say I don't have that and I just have the shoulder control, right? I can literally put my knee in there, right? Come on top or anything like this, right? All these same kind of things do the same thing, right? I have the ability to stretch him and he doesn't have the ability to leave, right? So once this foot is across, you just have to make sure this shoulder can't lead. If that's like this, that works, right? If that is like this, that works. that shoulder can't go anywhere, right? Doesn't matter like this though. If he takes that shoulder and puts it sky high, don't matter, right? So that's because I can close the gap, right? I'm isolating to myself, right? Without the ability to isolate, right? Boom, right? I'm like, can't reach, right? For here, I just have to make sure that shoulder can't leave me, right? So if I peel this elbow towards me and I'm like, haha, now he's in trouble, right? Yeah, so like, let's say I don't have that, like, deep control of the arm. If I'm like this, as long as he can't make this leave, right? I know this will not go nowhere, right? It literally can't. We're connected, right? Now, let's say he grabs my foot. Yeah, right? Can he toe hold me and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, right? Just use his foot. How much pressure could you apply?
Not much.
Right, so he applies on that, right? I literally put my hand or my foot right here and I come on top. Right on top of his shoulder. Right? Boop. And obviously I should be choking. Right? If you can, which I don't think you'll ever be able to, the almost optimal way of doing this is putting your knee underneath and then circling on top. You will be able to finish this far before you ever set that up. Right? But, you know, the most optimal way of doing it is the correct way of doing it. But I don't think you'll ever do it. You'll slide your heel down, come on top, and then pin them.
Tap way before.
Yeah. Questions on that? All right, let's show the setup one more time. Move. Work our way out, right? We're like, I want to get this. They start to sit up. Right, we come into it, right? We can literally come across, do it this way, come across, scoop the hand, right? Any form where I can pull his head, right, and extend my leg, right? If I extend my leg even just a little, right, this downward pressure you would think is what it's causing it, a little bit, right? But the ability to keep this rigid, right? If I have a super like loose ankle, look how much he gets. You see this flexion, right? Once I come like that, keep your toes like the boot. You should be hooking them. That flexion, you should be putting that bone.
Tendon and everything that runs through here flexes too when he does it. Creates a sharper ridge.
Lazy, not as strong, das Boot.
Dorsiflexion. That's what the
Yeah, that word. Right.
The scientists say.
Questions?
That's why you do tib raises.
Alright. Okay, so we're gonna go for the same setup. Boom. Right, keeping hooks coming in. Right. One of the most obvious things I can do, right, is a triangle. You're gonna take this knee, right, basically come right out, right here, right, putting it onto his shoulder, not over his shoulder immediately. If I do this immediately, right, there's a good chance, right, he is going to be able to snag it, he's going to have the ability to smush my leg, right? So what I'm going to do is put it right onto his shoulder, right, where my foot could press him away if need be, right? Now, most people are going to try to face you, right, and when they do that, boom, right? If they don't face you, it literally doesn't matter because you're doing the same thing. Right? So here, my foot is going to slide up. My knee is going to go into his neck crevice. I'm going to wipe the other direction. Right? And then I'm going to lock my feet. Right? You can skip this locking your feet phase if you want. Depends on like what your method of what you view as triangles. You could do a triangle just like this, right? You can do a triangle with no feet locked because you had your hand in here and you're like, come here, right? You can do all that stuff, right? And just for the core basics of a triangle, right? Right in here, control, control, control the window, right here, lock it up, right? And if you want to be like the super technical people, you can cross the hand over. I'm going to loosen up, right? So, cross the hand over, right? and then from here, you should be cutting angles, right? My feet, right, if I was squeezing and squeezing and squeezing and I couldn't get it, it's because the angle, right, is wrong. Most people think you choke people, and it's down. We're looking for this, right? So when I'm actually locked up, right, I'm gonna use space, right? I want to be able to take my body and do a dis, right? If I won't get there, right? If you have everything the way it should be, you won't get here, right? They should be tapping by then, right? But let's say his hand was over here, right? And I locked up like this. As soon as I turn over this way, that's very tight already. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That's tight.
Yep. So, most people think downward pressure. Downward pressure. You need side pressure, right? How do we increase side pressure? Imagine you're still facing this way. If I extend this way, I do nothing. So that means I have to bring to the fight only crunching, right? And we know we don't want to bring this to the fight because this is oh, I'm gonna air choke you. You can sit there for a long time, right? We wanna be able to choke this way, right? I'm gonna add my hands to the fight. Immediate, right? Turn. Obviously, I have it locked up. All right. Questions, comments, concerns?
Who's talking about, they're not here today, about the self-defense type thing? This is really good in self-defense too, 'cause go back. If he has that overhook, right, I can't hit him with this one, right? And then if he's grabbing his wrist, I can't hit him with this, right? And then he can throw this over and grab it. And then another thing too, right? If he has that overhook and he has his wrist control, right? And he's having a hard time getting that arm or this leg across for a triangle. What do most people want to do when they're here? They want to hit you, right? So they're trying to pull this arm back, and they're straightening themselves out and giving you that space. So you ever end up there? Now you're safe. They can't hit you. And then you choke them.
So a little bit about, to expand, because we didn't catch everything in class. All right, so if I'm here, right, I don't want to be straight on as we talked about in class, right? So I typically choose a side, control a window, right? AKA I like to typically put my hand right in between their shoulder and their neck, right? Push away, right, while keeping them down. Get that underhook. Pull it to you, then tuck your elbow. If you plant with this foot, be able to come on top and hook the bottom, right? If not doing that foot, keep this foot on top, plant the other foot, then basically come to a side, right? You're already pressing and gaining access to one side, and here you're just going to press and change your hips. Right? Once we're here, keeping this covered or up high. If I want to get it across, this foot should be chopping, right? Keeping hip control or pressing it over towards me, right? If I wanted a guillotine, this is what I would do. I would be here, right? I would swoop up and cover. But we're not going for guillotines. So if I plant here, right, my hand is either here or here, pressing away, coming to a side. This foot is still chopping at the base, making them want to fall, right? And then from here, I can push the head, right, and come over, right? If I'm here, I can always grab my own shin and pull it down and kick and have flexion if I choose to do so, right? Or I can be here and not have to do that, change the angle, come back up, right? Once I come back up, if they're keeping that hand super far away, right, I need to be able to control that shoulder. If I can't grab a hold of it, right, I'm going to keep their pressure down, and I'm going to use this foot over top. Same flexion of the foot, come over top, just like a triangle. Let's say I don't have the hand, let's say I do, doesn't really matter, same concept. This is going to come down, this bottom one's going to come up. I do both of them. I'm in a scissor motion. If you can get this foot deeper, cool, right? Don't allow your opponent to basically come up and face you, because now you have to change the angle of how you bring your foot down. We want to have control of our opponent, right? We don't want him to face us very much, even if it means, you know, keeping control over here, right? Or like this, cool, right? But take your foot, put it on top, be able to extend if you choose to do so, right? And then pull it down. Right, so this is if we can't get control of anything on that side, right? I sweep over, keeping it here, the choke's still there, right? This go-go plata is still gonna be there, right? If for some reason, right, I can't get here or here, from here you should transition, right? If I don't transition, and I just keep trying to fight it, whatever method you are choosing, this dummy does not do omoplatas very well. That's okay. So, assuming it was in an omoplata, then we also have the ability, if we can't get this person to break down, clasp a hand in the S around their face, pull it towards you, and drive down. So we miss going for the go-go, we miss going for the omo, right? They can't flatten them out, can't get enough pressure to go down. We can't really grab underneath because they're guarding that window, so we can't connect on their shoulder, right? What we can typically do then, S their face, we're gonna cross face them, connect our hands, pull it towards us, sit down with our hip. So his hand, relatively, right? His dummy is not going to work super well for this because of how his joint is, right? Assuming I have him in an omoplata, pushing him like this causes that extension. Being able to pry his head removes his ability to get away from me, so I'm covering his shoulder line. Being able to pry and press.